Hi, I'm Jennifer Morgan. I'm the Hunter Education Program Coordinator with the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. Muzzleloading season is going to be here before you know it. So in this segment today, I'm going to cover the basics of muzzleloading. You can follow along with me on pages 28 through 31 in your Hunter Education Manual. If you don't have a manual, you can download one for free at the link provided. So before we get started, let's cover some firearm safety rules. Rule number 1, always treat a firearm as if it were loaded. Number 2, always point the muzzle in a safe direction. And number 3, never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So let's cover some of the basic types of muzzleloaders available to you. We'll start with the more primitive muzzleloader. That's going to be a flintlock. The next one is either side lock or percussion cap. And the most popular muzzleloader today is the modern inline muzzleloader. So let's cover some of the basic parts on a muzzleloader. They're very similar to a modern day rifle. You'll have your trigger. It has a hammer, the barrel. Of course, your muzzleloaders are going to have some type of sight system. This one has got a scope on it, or might be an open sight. And one unique feature to a muzzleloader is the Ramrod. So this is what you're going to use when you load a muzzleloader. Of course, each type of muzzleloader is going to have different parts depending upon what type it is. The more primitive ones are going to obviously have more unique parts associated with those action types. Of course, when you get into muzzleloading, there's lots of different accessories that you're going to need as well. Like I said, you're already going to need the Ramrod. You'll need a ball starter. Then you'll also need your powder measurers or your flasks that goes along with loading your muzzleloader for either at the range or while hunting. Also, muzzleloaders are available to you in different caliber types. The smallest of being a 45, a 50 caliber, and a 54 caliber. So you might be wondering why it's called a muzzleloader. Well, typically they're loaded through the muzzle. Watch this quick clip that shows you how a muzzleloader is loaded and fired. Now that you have a better understanding of how a muzzleloader fires, let's talk about the items that you're going to need to actually shoot a muzzleloader. So depending upon, again, the caliber of rifle that you're going to use, you're going to pick the type of projectile. Or you're also going to have to determine which type of muzzleloader that you're going to use. If you're going to go more primitive, a round ball and a patch is what you're going to need, of course, with your powder. If you're going to go with a more modern style of muzzleloader, you might want to get a jacketed type of bullet or a sabot. They come in lots of different grains and sizes, and it's totally up to you on the game that you're going to be hunting and the type of muzzleloader. So you'll have to determine that. And of course, the type of powder. Of course, muzzleloaders use black powder or an approved substitute only. Do not use smokeless powder in a muzzleloader unless the manufacturer recommendation allows for it. So remember, black powder or approved substitutes only. Some of the approved substitutes I have here are different types. Or Pyrodex, you can use loose powder, or it also comes in pellets. So again, that's total shooter preference and sometimes the firearms preference as well. Some of the other things to think about with your muzzleloading is, of course, you're going to have something that's going to spark that powder in the breech of your firearm. On your modern day muzzleloaders, you're going to be using either a 209 primer, or some of them also use a small little percussion cap. So as you saw in the video, that's what sparks that powder to fire that muzzleloader. The other thing that I want to point out when you're going to be shooting a muzzleloader is never load the powder directly from the container into the firearm. Always use a powder flask or a powder measurer. That way, if you have something go wrong, it's not an entire container. It's a limited amount. And also, if you're going to be using different types of muzzle loaders with different grains of powder, it's always a good idea to mark those measures so you know exactly what you have in that container. When you're done shooting, it's always a great idea to take that powder out of the container and put it back into its proper container for later. Okay, so earlier I mentioned a unique part to a muzzleloader, and that's going to be your ramrod. Again, this is what you're going to use to push that powder, the patch and ball, or your jacketed bullet down the barrel all the way to the breech. One of the things that you're going to need to do for safety is mark your ramrod. So when I know, I can do a quick check that this muzzleloader is unloaded because it's flush and seated all the way to the breech. When I know I have my load built for my muzzleloader, it's to this mark. So when I put that ramrod down the barrel and it stops right there, I know that it's loaded. So again, that's one thing that you need to keep in mind with muzzleloading, is to not forget about that charge that's down here in the breech. So that's a safety concern. Always, that's how you check your muzzleloader, that it's clear, is if that ramrod goes all the way down and the end of your ramrod is flush with the end of the muzzle. One thing to consider when muzzleloading is moisture. You don't want to have any moisture get down inside the barrel while hunting. So this could be a concern when hunting in rainy or snowy conditions. So a really quick tip that can help you prevent any moisture getting down inside that barrel is take a roll of electrical tape with you. Put a strip of that electrical tape over the end of the muzzle, make a couple wraps around it, and that's all you need to do. Don't fret about that end of your barrel being covered. That electrical tape is thin enough, it will not affect the trajectory of your bullet, so don't worry about that. One of the other things I want to point out, of course, when hunting with a muzzleloader, is you're going to need to carry some additional supplies with you, but something that will help you if you do need to make a quick follow-up shot, or something happens and you need to take that load out of your muzzleloader, is I like to carry some of these quick shots or speed loaders, whatever they want to call them. And you can put your powder load in these, that's what the little marks are. That way you can stay consistent with the load that you've made up for your muzzleloader. Carry a couple of these with you, they're nice and tight. Carry a few of your extra projectiles with you, and then that way you have it with you in your pack, and you don't have to carry something large with you, especially if you're going to be doing quite a bit of walking. So these speed loaders are super handy to have while hunting. Black powder and its approved substitutes are highly corrosive. So it's extremely important that when shooting a muzzleloader, spending some time at the range, or following a hunt, that you properly and thoroughly clean your firearm. There's lots of solvents available to you on the market, but I highly recommend following the manufacturer's instructions on how to thoroughly and properly clean your muzzleloader. To learn more, I invite you to watch the quick video on how to safely load and unload a muzzleloader offered by huntered.com at the link provided. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.